moving runners along, playing good fundamental baseball.
Here's a guy like Mike Mordecai, who tried to bunt last night with 2 strikes on him twice, and he's a pinch hitter for a left-handed batter that hit a home run tonight. Now figure that out.
It's strange. Want to know? That's why I had to take a second look at the on-deck circle with Klesko due up to see Mordecai come up in this situation. But it's lefty against lefty. And he wants the right-handed batter in there instead. 1-1. Dennis Martinez, he hopes that he'll see more action. If he does, it will be Saturday. He would pitch a 6th game at Atlanta. Out of play tomorrow night. Again, the game tomorrow night is on ABC, right where you are. 8 o'clock Eastern. Our pregame show begins. First pitch around 8:20. Greg Maddux for Atlanta and Oral Hershiser, the same matchup we had in Game 1 last Saturday night. Crowd and the bench pensive. Still 1-2.
Alan Embry, the pitcher for the Indians, finally at a place where he doesn't have to worry about tickets. I know this is Cleveland. You'd think he lives there. Well, he's from the Seattle area, and when Cleveland played Seattle out there, ticket request. His wife is from the Atlanta area, so when they were in Atlanta, ticket requests down there. So he's finally playing in his home ballpark and not as many ticket requests.
For those of you sitting at home, players do pay for their tickets in the World Series. Do they ever? Foul back.
A lot of the people you've been giving tickets to think they don't have to pay for them.
No, in the old days, I mean, you know, I think one of the problems with Baltimore is we kept getting in there, and then, you know, the first year we got 8 boxes and 20 upper deck, and the next year was 6 boxes. The third year was 4 boxes, and the ticket prices kept going up. You wanted a suite because it would cost you less money because they thought you were getting them for nothing.
And knowing you, I'm surprised you didn't ask for a trade.
Oh, yes. But of course, you're right.
Here's the 1-2 pitch, and that's lined to left field and right into the glove of Bell for the out. 2 down.
What do you mean, knowing me?
Yeah.
It's a sneaky
Known you
way
a long
for
time.
you to get your friends to whip out.
That's true.
2 out in the 9th inning.
What do you mean we have to pay for these tickets?
The tickets very much at a premium in this ballpark. One of the ironies of the World Series coming to Cleveland is that they could have had twice as many people in the old park. Old cavernous Cleveland Stadium as Mark Wiley visits the mound with first base open here. Lopez and Lemke on deck. But I think the good folks in Cleveland will much prefer Jacobs Field in the long run to old Cleveland Stadium. Tonight's World Series game is being brought to you by United Artists Goldeneye. Bond is back this fall. Texaco Clean System 3 gasolines. And Network MCI, how to get modern communications technology working for your business. When the Indians bat in the bottom of the 9th inning, Ramirez, Perry, and Tomei. 6, 7, and 8. Embry's first pitch inside, ball 1 to Lopez. Charlie O'Brien figures to catch tomorrow night since he normally hooks up with Maddux. Strike. 1-1. Late swing. 1-2. Ted Turner, Jane Fonda, just relaxing. Ted's owned the Braves since the mid-70s. They're still seeking that first championship since the franchise went to the South in the mid-60s. And that's hit down the left field line, and that will drive in another run as Bell will track it down in the corner. McGriff comes in to score. Lopez has a double, and that makes the score 5-1. A 4-run lead in the 9th inning with Lopez doubling for the second time in the game, and Lemke coming up.
I'll tell you, this is pretty impressive, Timmy. I'll tell you what, pretty good pitch inside part of the plate, probably 95 miles per hour. And you see Javi Lopez, how quick his bat is. Fights it off, strong enough not only to fight it off, but take it off the left field wall for an RBI double.
That's a 95-mile-an-hour inside fastball. He roped down there, and everybody's thinking, well, you've got Lemke up, first base open. But when you're trailing by 3 runs and you're Mike Hargrove, you don't want to put any more runners on base. Now you get the big pop, and the game's really out of hand. Mark Lemke, a .290 hitter against left-handed pitching the last 3 years.
One and one. Lopez was his 9th in postseason, and that's as many as Freddie McGriff has. So Javi quietly doing the job. 1-2 pitch, and that's hit in the air to left field. Bell moves over toward the gap and hauls it in. In the 9th, Atlanta gets a run to extend its lead to 5-1, and we'll return to Cleveland after this from our ABC stations. It's on top 5-1 going to the bottom of the 9th inning, and with a 4-run lead, despite having pitched last night an extended 2 2/3 innings, the Atlanta Braves can smell it. And then when you can smell it, you go to your bullpen and you bring in Mark Wohlers. And so here he is. And Bobby Cox was talking before the game with us about, and Jim, you better than anybody can tell the folks, are you stiffer the next night or the night after for a relief pitcher after you have the type of outing he had last?
Yeah, I think Bobby was generalizing, but he said normally people tell him it's the second day. Only 41 pitches, but with the intentional work of about 34 pitches last night in those 2 2/3 innings. And again, if you're Bobby Cox and you're Leo Mazzoni, the pitching coach, you have to rely that this young man at 25 is going to tell you the truth. He can pitch, and he says yes. With his kind of stuff, get him out there.
Manny Ramirez to lead off, bottom of the 9th inning.
And if you're the Indians, you need base runners. You'll take them any way you can get them.
One and oh.
And plus, you may be thinking, well, why is Wohlers in a game like this 4 runs down? Well, when it was 3 runs down, it was a save situation. He got ready, and then Lopez got the double. So while he's ready, bring him in. That's Bobby Cox's thinking, and you certainly can't fault him.
Fouled away in the count 1-1. You're down by 4. You need base runners. I mean, do you not take a strike?
Absolutely, but that has vanished in the game. You know, the players are bigger, stronger today. They're better players potentially, but that doesn't translate into the game being played as well. And that's unfortunate.
Strike 2. But if you're the manager, just give them the take sign.
Well, guys are less apt to take the take sign nowadays. It's the tail wagging the dog on a lot of clubs.
Then you fine them.
I mean, Mike Hargrove, I mean, he had one of the best and most disciplined strike zone of any guy I ever pitched to. He would have been taking on his own. But then again, he knew how to play the game. It makes a difference. If you spent 4 or 5 years coming through the minor leagues, you just know in that situation, I don't even worry about me getting a hit. I worry about getting on base somewhere. And sometimes that means taking a pitch.
And it was interesting that the 1-0 pitch was a high fastball out of the strike zone.
And it would have been 2-0.
Yep.
2-2 is hit in the air to deep left center field. And that one is in the bleachers. There have been no more magical endings in baseball anywhere more than Jacobs Field this year. Seemingly night after night this summer. And Ramirez makes it 5-2.
That's about the time it took for him to get down to first base.
So a 3-run lead, and Sorrento batting for Perry takes a strike. Tomei on deck. One and one. That home run by Ramirez was his third of postseason and has accounted for every RBI he has. 3 solo home runs.
Yeah, the second game against Seattle, he had 2 of those home runs and 4 of those RBIs.
Then after that, he went 4 for his last 40 till that home run. So he's been struggling.
1-1 to Sorrento. Missing away. 2-1.
Well, you know, maybe that home run will tell Mark Wohlers, I just can't stay in the middle of the plate. Normally, when he throws that speed with great movement, he just can throw it right by you.
Half swing. Fooled him. 2-2.
Fooled him not with the pitch, but the location of the pitch. Low and away out of the strike zone. Ball went too far. You don't have too long to decide, I'll tell you.
Oh, no.
Line drive. Hit into left center, and maybe more as it rolls to the wall. And Sorrento is in at second with a double.
What a huge run driven in by Javier Lopez in the top of the 9th inning. Otherwise, the Indians have the tying run up in the person of Jim Tomei. Belliard jumping for that just out of his reach, and Sorrento with a double. Bobby wanted to jump with Rafi.
The Indians this season won 9 games in which the team trailed going into the 9th inning, and Pedro Borbon comes in from the bullpen. So the Indians with a lot of late inning magic this year, and now Wohlers, after that extended outing last night, is asked to pitch an inning tonight and can't face a third batter as he gives up a home run and a double, and out he comes. And now Pedro Borbon, the son of the former Reds pitcher in the 70s who pitched in a World Series, comes in here.
Jim, I've got to believe Bobby Cox is saying if Manny Ramirez can get around on a Wohler's fastball and Sorrento can hit a ball that hard, then I've got to believe that Wohlers just doesn't have it, and that's it.
No, and I think he's got a lot of guts to make this move.
I do too.
And again, if you're a manager or even if you're a pitcher, the hitters tell you something's not working, and that was rather obvious tonight. Again, the velocity looked like it was up there, Timmy, but no movement. Obviously, a lot of line drives, and if you're Bobby Cox, I'll tell you what, because you bring in Borbon, you still have Clance to back him up.
Such a strange game. You go to Wohlers to close him out. He can't do it. So now you have to go backwards in a way.
Right.
You bring in Borbon. Borbon has pitched one time in postseason, October 6th. So he hasn't pitched in 2 weeks, and he faced 4 batters that night at Atlanta against Colorado. And Thome will come up to hit, lefty against lefty.
And this is no sure thing, lefty versus lefty. Last year, Thome, you look at his numbers here in the World Series, but this year he hit 275 against left-handed pitching. Last year it was about 170.
And Alejandro Pena, the loser last night, and Clance in the bullpen.
Yeah, so that would mean that Borbon is there to pitch to one hitter, and that's Thome.
Borbon pitching for the first time in 19 days. Alomar on deck.
Borbon, fastball, slider. Everything's hard.
Throwing a strike's the most difficult for Pedro right now, however.
2-0.
Got a take here. 2 balls, no strikes. The Indians are trailing by 3. 1 runner on. By Mike Hargrove, now I flash the take sign.
Yeah, and Thome, I mean, Thome hit a lot of home runs, but he also walked 97 times, so he knows the strike zone. You don't care. A 2-run home run doesn't mean anything here. It puts you still 1 run down.
Right.
2-1.
Well, he will drop down on you. Had a chance to talk to Pedro yesterday. We'll go back to the Dominican to become a starting pitcher. Said, I want to work on a changeup, but he said up here in the big leagues, he said, I got to get left-handed hitters out, and my best pitch is a good fastball and a hard slider. He will drop down and give you that look. Different point of release.
Strike 3. Pedro Borbon, for the first time in almost 3 weeks, goes to a mound, falls behind 2-0, and on a 2-2 pitch, that's a beauty.
Sure was. Good mechanics. Shoulder stays tucked, and he lets it go. It's been a very liberal strike zone all night. It's been a big strike zone, maybe an inch or so off the plate.
And the way he worked to Thome earned him another batter, because they stay with him to face Alomar, who fouls it back. You would have said, as we did, that it was a case of facing just the left-handed hitter.
But because he looked so good and threw strikes and Lofton is on deck, the left-hander, Bobby Cox, is allowing Borbon to face Alomar.
And remember something you talked about earlier, and Bobby Cox told us early before, Al, was that Pena with a little bit of upper back problem. So Bobby again seeing for his own eyes. This kid has thrown the ball 90 miles per hour and throwing strikes. Take a shot here.
He had very few save opportunities during the regular season and wound up with just 2. That's grounded foul. And here he is trying to save the 4th game of the World Series. 0-2. Just inside. How strange has this baseball season been? Remember the replacement players? Pedro's father, Pedro Sr., in his late 40s was a replacement player. And here's Junior trying to save Game 4 of the World Series. And he strikes him out. Alomar is gone. 2 down in the 9th inning, and Lofton comes up.
This is the replacement player that Bobby Cox wanted. That's Pedro Borbon replacing his best reliever in a situation where he comes in to strike out Thome and now Sandy Alomar, and restored order for the time being.
Well, you really are seeing why everybody considers this Braves staff the best staff in baseball. It's not just the starters. And this is what baseball is all about, picking up the guy in front of you that may falter.
Thome still barking about called strike 3. Lofton at the plate. Outside, ball 1. If Kenny gets on, that brings the tying run to the plate. Omar Vizquel. 5-2 Braves. 2 out of the 9th. And that's lined to right field, and backing up and making the catch is Justice. Lofton smoking it to right field. Wohler's the first guy out of the dugout. A star is born right there. Pedro Borbon Jr. The pitching coach Leo Mazzoni heaves a sigh of relief, and the kid comes out of the pen pitching for the first time in 19 days with the crowd in a frenzy, and he stills them in Cleveland.
I think Jim's point about Bobby Cox having the courage to bring Borbon in that situation, fairly salient thinking right now.
I mean, Bobby, you know, again, you've been around the game this long, Timmy. You see with your own eyes. I still remember walking down, talking about Darrell Weaver saying a guy threw 135 pitches. He told me, he said, listen, I can see whether the guy's got good stuff or not. That's what Cox did tonight.
Tonight's Chevrolet player of the game with the final score: Braves 5, Indians 2. Dave Justice, that big 2-run single in the 7th inning, turned a 2-1 game into a 4-1 game. And in conjunction with the program, Chevy contributes a total of $50,000 to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And let's get a word from Leslie Visser. Leslie.
Al, with Dave Justice, Mark Lemke said you were due to break out tonight. How satisfying was that 2-run single?
It was great because until that opportunity runners, so it felt really good because we needed that, because we know what kind of team Cleveland has, and the more runs we can get ahead of them, the better for us.
What was the difference in this game? Do you feel Steve Avery justified Bobby Cox deciding to go with him?
Steve did an awesome job. You know, he was under a lot of pressure. A lot of people were kind of second-guessing Bobby, and Steve came out and did what we didn't do a lot of times, and I'm really happy for him. So give that home. You know, I want he did and you know, came up big for it.
Congratulations.
Okay, Leslie, we apologize for the technical difficulties, but I think we got the essence of what Dave was talking about, and clearly the essence of what happens tonight is the Braves are 1 win away from the world title. Tomorrow night, Game 5, Maddox against Hershiser, the game right here on ABC. Until tomorrow, from Jacobs Field, Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver saying good night from Cleveland. Cleveland, where the temperature is in the lower 50s. A couple of hours ago, we had rain showers. Neither team took batting practice, but the skies right now have cleared. The game will start on time. The crowd still filing into Jacobs Field for Game 5 of the World Series between the Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians, with the Braves leading in the series 3-1. And welcome back to Cleveland, everyone. I'm Al Michaels, soon to be joined by Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. The Atlanta Braves moved south in 1966, so they conclude their 30th season. They have yet to win a world title in the South. The last time this team won a world championship was 1957 when they were the Milwaukee Braves. Will tonight be the night? The Cleveland Indians have not won a world title since 1948, and they are faced with the very daunting task of not only winning tonight and beating the premier pitcher in baseball, Greg Maddux, but then going to Atlanta and having to erase a 3-1 deficit, with games 6 and 7 taking place Saturday and Sunday if necessary. For the Braves, a lot of frustration, as we just talked about at the very top of the show. In 1991, they lost a 7-game World Series to Minnesota. Then in 1992, they lost in 6 to Toronto. In 93, they won the West and lost in the League Championship Series to Philadelphia. A guy who was there for all of those series and is here now is with Leslie Visser.
Al, the Atlanta Braves couldn't ask for much better scenario than 3-1 lead with Greg Maddux on the mound, but this man has been close before. Mark Lemke, in 91, you won 7 games, 92, 6 games. What gives you more confidence this time?
Well, you know, I don't think anything really does, because I think after you've been through it a couple of times, you say, hey, you know, anything can happen. We've been in good positions before, and we've had what we thought was our best possible scenario before. So, you know, we're happy to be in this position because this is what we wanted. I mean, especially after losing the game the other night, we wanted to get back on top and have this scenario going into Game 5 here and have Greg Maddux on the mound for us.
How did you handle those losses before, and does it make this one make you a little more cautious?
Oh, definitely. I mean, they're tough. They're all tough, and any game you play here is going to be tough. You look at the competition you're up against. You just look at the World Series in general. It's never easy. So nobody's yet prepared to count their chickens before their hats.
Their ring. What about in the field? You've been almost flawless, but does this weather affect you?
Oh, it's tough to field in cold weather. It's tough to do a lot. It's tough to play this game in cold weather. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's the boys of summer, so the game was meant to be played in the summertime, not now. But yeah, it feels like you should have the shoulder pads and the helmet on right about now.
Great. Well, maybe be going home with the championship. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Back to you, Al.
Okay, Leslie, one of the big reasons, of course, the Braves are up 3-1 pitching. Consider this: the Cleveland Indians during the regular season collectively hit .291, highest mark in the majors in 45 years. In the World Series, the Indians are batting .190, but a guy who is holding his own, the leadoff hitter for the Indians, is with John Saunders.
All right, thanks a lot. Here now with center fielder Kenny Lofton. And Kenny, you're down 3-1, but your club still has to feel, I mean, you've lost a couple of those games by 1 run. You very easily could be up 3-1.
Yeah, that's what it is. We have the attitude. We know we can go out there and try to win the game today because we had a chance to win, both those games. The ones we lost by 1 run, and we feel that if we go out there and do our job today, anything can happen.
When you take a look at Greg Maddux, the team definitely struggled against him the first time out. He was masterful, allowing only a couple of hits. Is there a different approach to how you guys feel approaching him in the second time?
I think it's a different approach because you've seen him before. It's the first time a lot of us have seen him before, so it's kind of tough seeing a pitcher for the first time and expect to do well off of him. And that's what happened the first game. We didn't have an idea, what he's throwing, how his ball was moving. Now we have a great idea.
All right, Kenny, good luck in game number 5, and perhaps we'll see you for game number 6 back in Atlanta. Right now, let's go back up to Al.
Okay, John, and we'll return with coverage of the 1995 World Series after this from our ABC station.
And now to honor America, please welcome a member of the Eagles and Cleveland's own Joe Walsh for the singing of tonight's national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched softly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Cleveland's own Joe Walsh with the anthem as Atlanta's own Greg Maddux loosens up for the start of Game 5.
When I get a headache, I just want it gone. But not with Tylenol. 2 Advil work better on tough pain, and not with Excedrin. That's aspirin with the ingredient in Tylenol and caffeine. I don't want that. I'll go with Advil.
Advanced medicine for pain.
You've always made a great team. Together growing, dreaming, caring.
1995 World Series game is brought to you by the makers of Advil.
And welcome back to Jacobs Field. A light mist, scattered showers forecast for later on, but the game ready to start on time as we get set for the 5th game of the World Series, the Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians. Al Michaels back in Cleveland. I know one thing, the Atlanta Braves are back in Atlanta tomorrow. The question is, are the Cleveland Indians back there with them on an off day? We're about to find out. Tim McCarver, baseball fans always want to know when a team goes down 3-1, how often does it happen? How often can a team erase that deficit? How often have they done it in the World Series?
Well, Al, you mentioned the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm reminded of a line in a Neil Young song that it's better to burn out than fade away. And the Indians fans are hopeful that it doesn't happen to their Indians. But how tough is it going to be? Well, there have been 37 teams to take a 3-1 lead in the best of 7 series, and 5 times have teams come back to win it. As a matter of fact, I was on a Cardinals team in 1968 when the Tigers did it. Jim Palmer was on an Orioles team in 1979 when the Pirates did it. But a word of caution to Braves fans. Back in 1992, Atlanta had a 3-1 lead against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it took a miracle hit by Francisco Cabrera in the 9th inning of Game 7 to win it for the Braves. So is it possible? Absolutely. Tough, you bet.
Well, after that graphic, I'm going to stop hanging around with you guys. Jim Palmer, again, a classic pitching matchup as we saw Saturday night, Maddux and Hershiser tonight.
Yeah, 2 classic pitchers, Al, and they both pitched marvelous games. Earl Hershiser talked all summer and all season long about there's no true ace on this ball club. He said who's ever pitching that night for Cleveland is the ace. And tonight, I guess we're going to call him the ace of hearts. The Indians have had a marvelous year, 100 major league wins that led all the major league teams. They just played so great. They won the division. They won the championship. And if he doesn't pitch up to his capabilities, doesn't pitch up to his expectations, he's going to break a lot of hearts. For Bobby Cox, Atlanta Braves, who better than Greg Maddux to pitch tonight and try to win a World Series? 19-2. What an incredible year with a 1.63 ERA. And the last couple of years, he's been struggling in postseason, 1-2 with an ERA of over 8 runs a game. This year, 3-0. He's been perfect. So if he can paint another masterpiece like he did Saturday night in Atlanta, they are going to win this World Series.
And Bobby Cox also has Glavine and Smoltz in reserve if necessary. Let's get down to the field, get an update from Leslie Visser. Leslie?
Al, it's been a long day for Chipper Jones. He got to the park about 2:30 this afternoon. He told me he didn't sleep all night. He said he was thinking about when Ted Turner came into the clubhouse about 3 weeks ago and told everyone, I'd love to buy you guys something nice for your ring finger. Well, for general manager John Sherholtz, he's been on the other end of this advantage. Back in 1985, 10 years ago, he was the GM at Kansas City when they trailed 3-1, came back to beat St. Louis in 7 games. He told me a little while ago, I am desperate to win this game. For more on the Indians, let's go to John Saunders.
Well, thanks a lot, Leslie. And you mentioned 1985, and Tim McCarver talked about 1979 when the Pittsburgh Pirates came back from down 3-1 to beat the Baltimore Orioles. Well, don't forget that 2 members of that Orioles team are here with the Cleveland Indians, Dennis Martinez and Eddie Murray, rather. So he can definitely say to his teammates, hey, guys, I know it can be done because I've seen it done against me. As for how the team feels, well, it's guarded optimism for this team. They know the task ahead of them, but they also know if they win tonight, the pressure switches back to the Atlanta Braves. Right now, back up to Al.
All right, thank you, John, and we'll return with Game 5 of the 1995 World Series after this ABC News brief and a word from our ABC stations. Back at Jacobs Field. An unusual first pitch ceremony tonight. This was Friday at Cape Canaveral, the launching of the Space Shuttle Columbia, and then earlier today, Commander Ken Bowersox aboard.
Welcome aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia. We've been on orbit since last Friday conducting science experiments as part of the United States Microgravity Laboratory. But tonight, our thoughts are with the national pastime. To the Braves and to the Indians, good luck in Game 5 of the World Series. Now let's play ball.
And then they recreated the end of that throw here moments ago. Funny thing, it started out as a changeup and wound up as a split finger.
You've heard of heavy fastballs? That was weightless.
So unorthodox way to begin as we get set for the 5th game of the World Series, as Orel Hershiser goes to the mound 3-1 in this postseason and 7-1 lifetime in postseason play. And here is tonight's Budweiser Atlanta Braves starting lineup. Marquise Grissom in center, Luis Polonia in left, Chipper Jones, the rookie, at third, Fred McGriff having a terrific postseason at first, Dave Justice, one of last night's stars, in right, Ryan Klesko has homered in each of the last 2 games, the DH Mark Lemke at second, Charlie O'Brien, who normally catches, Greg Maddux is in there tonight, and Rafael Belliard, the shortstop, bats ninth. In the outfield for Cleveland, Bell, Lofton, and Ramirez. The infield, Tomei at third, Vizquel at short, Baerga at second, and Sorrento gets the start tonight at first base. Alomar catching, and Orel Hershiser on the mound for the Cleveland Indians.
37-year-old right-hander, and I'll tell you what, he is very close to what he was in 1988 when he won the Cy Young Award, went 23-8. Shoulder surgery in 1991. His shoulder seems to have gotten a lot stronger, a lot looser. Velocity is back. Snap on the curveball. And on Saturday night, pitched a marvelous game, made about 2 or 3 mistakes. Fastball in the 2nd inning to McGriff. He hit a home run, and back-to-back walks in the 7th. Eventually, those were the 2nd and 3rd, the winning run.
Marquise Grissom. Outstanding series, outstanding postseason. He's 7 for 17 in the 4 games thus far. So Game 5 underway in Cleveland, and the first pitch is a strike. Grissom, Polonia, and Jones. Marquise, one of the missing pieces of the puzzle, along with Polonia, acquired during the season. Marquise starting the year on the Montreal roster, and then in their fire sale, they sent Grissom away, and they sent Ken Hill away to St. Louis, and eventually he wound up with Cleveland. Strike 2, 1-2.
I'll tell you, the middle of the plate is going to be very lonely tonight with both pitchers. They do not throw the ball over the fat part of the plate.
Not if they can help it.
No.
Crowd still filing in, and the pitch is hit right back to the mound. 1 away. That'll bring up Luis Polonia.
Number 17, Luis Polonia.
Polonia, who came over from the Yankees, and we talked about it last night. When Darryl Strawberry was signed by the Yankees, Polonia became the odd man out and was an instrumental factor in the victory yesterday. That's a little squibber. Hershiser takes care of this one underhanded. So 2-1-3s in the scorebook, and up comes Chipper Jones.
And speaking of odd men out at the Yankees, it looks like Buck Showalter, well, he was offered the job by George Steinbrenner, a 2-year deal, but he did not accept it, and he's the odd man out.
Well, probably very briefly. A lot of rumors that he will go and manage the Tigers. Would not be surprised with that move.
Chipper Jones takes a strike. Frank Pulley, a National League umpire, is back of the plate tonight. And that's hit down the line in left field and into the corner, and a fair ball. Albert Bell plays the carom, but Chipper Jones is in at second with a double. His 4th hit of the World Series.
You know, they were talking to Chipper Jones after seeing Hershiser in Game 1 on Saturday night what kind of pitcher he is, and he said he likes to stay away. Good movement, likes to keep the ball down. This time he gets it up. Jones looking away, and we've seen him many times during the postseason go that way. And he's down at second base in scoring position with a double.
Jones now with 18 hits in this, the 13th postseason game for Atlanta. Now McGriff. And as was the case last night, first base open. McGriff, the hot man. Justice has been cooler, but last night Justice was the guy who really got it done, turning a 2-1 game into a 4-1 game. Strike.
As far as Justice was concerned last night, the 3rd time was a charm. He failed the first 2 times, stranding runners in the 1st and 3rd, 2 runners aboard in the 1st and 3rd, and then he came through against Ossenmacher on the hanging curveball to make it 4-1.
Two and one.
And I think we'll see Worrell doing exactly what Kenny Hill did, is said, listen, I'm going to make my pitch. I'm not really going to pitch around him. I'm just going to make good pitches. If I don't make that pitch, I'll gamble a little bit and pitch to Justice.
Two out, Jones at second, and the 2-1 pitch, a strike, 2-2. One of the things Mike Hargrove was a little concerned about before the game, the Indians manager said a National League umpire working with Maddox. But the interesting irony here is that the National League umpire has also seen most of Hershiser's career as well. So Frank Pulley familiar with very much with both of them. And it's chopped foul at the plate. Worrell had the look of almost soaking in the atmosphere, didn't he? He's one of the few guys who could, too, in this situation. Check swing. No. Jim McKeon, the third base umpire.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, because when he pitched up in Seattle, it's 57,000. As we take a look, does he go? Real close. An Indian fan, you want strike 3, and if you're a Brave fan, you think he held up. That's all that matters. Again, Jim McKeon said no swing.
Struck him out. Braves waste a double by Jones after a half. Atlanta nothing. The Indians coming up.
Let me guess. One side of you craves easy chair comfort.
Weiser, Cleveland Indians starting lineup. Kenny Lofton, the igniter in center. Omar Vizquel bat second. The switch hitting by Erga, hitting third. Albert Bell homered last night, left field. Eddie Murray, game-winning hit 2 nights ago. The DH. Jim Thome, the platooning third baseman, hit sixth. Manny Ramirez in right. Paul Sorrento, the start tonight at first base, and Sandy Alomar Jr. back of the plate.
We're going to bring back something that we had in game 1 to show you how Greg Maddux gets hitters out. The hitters refer to this as making X's on the corners. He can swing the breaking ball to the left-handed batter, freeze them, and then he can run the fastball away from left-handers. On the inside part of the plate, he can tail the fastball in. That's his 2-strike pitch, and he gets a lot of strikeouts there. And he can run the cutter in on the hands when he wants to jam a hitter. So Maddux, nobody makes X's on both sides of the plate better than this guy.
That plate was not quite drawn to scale, but you get the idea.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I've been around the game 35 years. I'd like to think I know something about pitching. I've never seen anybody. Seen guys with better stuff. I mean, we can see Randy Johnson, but nobody has pitched to both sides of the plate better than the really young man at 29, Greg Maddux.
Here's Kenny Lofton, and the pitch in there for a strike, 0-1.
You know, Charlie Manuel, the hitting instructor, said we've seen him, we've studied tape. Lofton talked about it too. And he said basically you cannot try to protect this whole plate early in the count against Maddux. They said, gee, we're going to make him throw strikes. We threw so many strikes, they found themselves 1-2, 0-2.
Yes, and what you're saying is instead of looking for a pitch, look location. Take the outside part of the plate away from him, look inside, or take the inside part of the plate from him and look outside.
Chopped foul by Lofton, 2-2.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And again, Charlie saying, listen, he changes speeds real well, but if we try to protect the whole plate, which was what hitting with 2 strikes is all about, we don't have a chance.
Yeah, he'll have you diving all over the place.
Which is exactly what he did in game 1. And just notice how quickly he will pitch. Maybe 10 seconds, 12 seconds between pitches.
Jim, will the Indians have any more of an advantage having seen Maddux just 5 nights ago?
Well, I think that's an advantage, but because I always felt back-to-back games against a good hitting ball club, and this is the team that led the majors in runs scored and batting average, even though they are only hitting 190, is very difficult. But Maddux, I don't know. He's that good.
2-2 to Lofton is popped up. Shallow right field. Justice comes racing in with Grissom, and it is Justice because he is taller making the catch. So 1 down, and Vizquel coming up. The outfield tonight, Polonia, Grissom, and Justice. The infield of Jones, Belliard, Lemke, and McGriff. Charlie O'Brien, I mentioned before, catches Maddux almost every time Greg goes out. And Maddux on the mound. Omar Vizquel, 3 for 17 in the World Series. He's hitting only 135 overall in postseason play, but he has driven in 7 runs, and he's been sensational in the field. 2-0. Talking to Mike Hargrove before the game, Tim asked him, will you be more aggressive on the bases tonight? Mike said, we just have to get people on the bases.
Yeah. Well, the table setters, I mean, Lofton with over 50 steals, Vizquel with 29. If they get on, they're going to be running. It's the only thing that Maddux does not do well. And that's hold runners on. And you can see his basic premise of pitching is to get ahead of the hitters. He's going to try to throw the first pitch to every batter over. He didn't do it to Vizquel, and this one way down and in runs the count to 3 balls and 1 strike, and there's your walk.
That's a major rally against Maddux. He did not walk a man the other night. A 1-out walk here, and out Baerga comes up.
I think the point that both Timmy and I tried to make, Al, on Saturday was he makes you beat him. You usually don't get free passes. He once went 51 consecutive innings this year without walking somebody. So you're right, a bonus.
Carlos Baerga playing with an air cast on his ankle. Hobbled off the field at the end of game 1, but he's played through it. Walks per 9 innings this season, less than 1 per 9 innings for Maddux. Unbelievable.
And that's the best of his career, too.
That's one of those stats when you look at it, you have to look at who was second, and you saw Shane Reynolds of Houston was second, walking 1 3/4 men per game, with Maddox at less than 1. That's kind of Gretzky-izing the record book is what it amounts to. There goes Vizquel, and it's fisted to the right side, slowly hit. Lemke recovers to throw him out. Mark Lemke was moving over toward the bag, had time though to come back and throw out Baerga as Vizquel advances.
Well, Cleveland had the right guy covering Mark Lemke, but Baerga didn't hit it hard enough. He was jammed by Maddox. A hit and run play. Now watch Lemke go toward the bag with Vizquel running, but because the ball wasn't hit sharply enough, Lemke has a chance to recover and throw him out.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of what you were talking about last night. If you send a runner, start him, how you move the middle infielders.
Now Albert Bell hasn't hit very much through postseason, but he's been very selective. He has walked 11 times. Lemke ducks in at second, and Maddox fires back there.
Well, Albert last night with his first extra base hit, and that was a home run right down the right field line. Good hitting, you have to adjust. He stood well off the plate early in this World Series, especially against Maddox. He has moved up. He's a little bit closer.
And he hits it in the air down the right field line and into the corner, and just like last night, gone. Same spot.
We talked about taking half of the plate away from Maddox. Bell went up there, he looked away, he got it away, and hit it away. A long way.
Now this is a ball in game 1 he doesn't touch. He couldn't reach it. So right out, it is more difficult. Hitters adjust.
That was a replay of his home run last night. Right field, just over the fence. Murray hits it foul.
Even though last night Avery threw him a changeup. Last night was a changeup to tie it, a solo home run to right field, and we'll have another look at it.
Talk about hitting the same target.
Yeah. Tonight was a fastball from Maddox.
Frank Pulley steps in between, and now both dugouts will empty.
Charlie O'Brien arguing with Eddie Murray. They used to be teammates with the Mets, but how ridiculous is that? I mean, that's part of pitching. You come up and in on guys, not necessarily because they hit a home run. But you remember in the American League, that stuff doesn't happen. In the National League, it's more part of an everyday day at the office. As Hershiser and Maddox are very calm in that whole thing.
Two choir boys in the middle of a riot.
An overreaction by Eddie Murray, in my judgment.
Well, I'll tell you what, it does tell you something about Maddox and his competitiveness. Bell hits the home run. Murray had a home run swing on the first pitch. They're getting a little bit too comfortable, and this is a guy that when he pitched for the Cubs, he said, what is the knockdown sign? He looks like a guy that wants to sell you insurance, but he means business, and this is part of pitching.
Sometimes you may have to buy that insurance from him.
I tell you, it might be medical insurance, too. That's just part of pitching. That's the way the game is played, and Eddie Murray's been around long enough to know that. He's 2 for 14 in the World Series. He's pointing at his head, but the way you hit guys is you throw it behind them. You throw it at their head, everybody gets out of the way of those pitches.
And with the crowd raucously chanting Eddie, Eddie, the pitch inside, ball 2, 2-1.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, not you ever have to worry about getting the crowd involved here at Jacobs Field, but the home run and that knockdown pitch, that's going to last 6 or 7 innings.
2-2.
I think Eddie just trying to intimidate Maddox to try to keep him out of there. Maddox came right back in there and then threw the changeup away.
Bell's homer has made it 2-0. 2 out, bases empty. Oof. Maddox ready to move toward the dugout.
Well, you remember that tailing fastball that we talked about? His strikeout pitch. Bobby Cox wanted it.
I got to think it's high, Timmy. I mean, that's the only reason you call that ball.
Yeah, that ball had the plate, but it could have been called high.
Next year, it's a strike. Hit foul. It's supposed to be a strike anyway.
Right.
I always thought so.
Hershiser staked to a 2-0 advantage. 2 out. Bases empty. Bottom of the first. Ball 4. Jim Thome, .314 during the regular season with 25 homers, 73 runs batted in.
I think by scoring early, what the Indians have done is given their hitters a chance to relax. You can almost see the tenseness in their neck muscles and their face muscles. The hands are gripping the bat too tightly. And that home run by Albert Bell perhaps gave the Indians hitters a chance to relax a little bit. That's the advantage of scoring early.
How unusual is this start for Maddox? In the last 2 seasons, only twice has he allowed as many as 2 runs in the first inning. And this will be his 23rd pitch of the first inning.
Well, as good as he is in this ballpark over the course of a year that is hitter friendly, it would be tough to have a 1.63 ERA with a designated hitter, an extra hitter. Because this park plays very, very small.
0-1 to Thome is fisted foul off to the left. 0-2.
You may remember in game 1 when Orel Hershiser came up and in to David Justice. I think it was his first time up. But it was on an 0-2 pitch. And because the National League hitters see a lot of those types of pitches, Justice didn't react. But Murray did, because in the American League, guys don't come in as much.
Up high, snap throw to first base, and they pick him off. Eddie Murray is picked off. Nice scoop at first base by McGriff. And on a snap throw to first base by O'Brien. The other night, it was Lopez. And Eddie picked off, but the Indians take the lead in the first, 2-0.
Starter says, listen, he comes back and says, I don't have anything when he's pitching no-hitters and shutouts. But he is a very analytical guy. And he's talking to Leo Mazzoni, and they're discussing what happened in that first inning. Because you don't see him get behind in the count, throw home runs very often, or walk guys very often.
Especially 2 walks in 1 inning.
Ball 1-2. Hershiser the other night pitched masterfully through 6. Then in the 7th inning, he walked 2 men. Mark Wiley, the pitching coach, went to the mound to talk things over with him. Orel says, I've lost my release point. I'm out of the game. Strike 3. Back-to-back strikeouts for Hershiser. He's fanned 2 in an inning in the 3rd. Klesko coming up. And tonight's World Series Game 5 is being brought to you by Buick and your local dealers. Remember, Buick, the new symbol for quality in America. Gillette Sensor XL and the Gillette Series. Gillette, the best a man can get. And Budweiser, official sponsor of the 1996 U.S. Olympic team. This Bud's for you. Klesko at the plate. He's homered in each of the last 2 games. A strike here, 0-1.
Klesko's opened up a little bit more than he has been through the first 4 games. He's got that right foot toward first base a little bit more. Prior to this at bat, he was about even.
Easy grounder to Baerga. 2 up and 2 down, and that will bring up Lemke. Jim, how unusual did you find it that Orel in that situation on Saturday night said to Wiley, I'm done?
Pretty unusual, but again, you know, here's a guy at 37. Mike Hargrove said, you know, I'm going to protect you, but the bottom line is that apparently Dennis Martinez and Orel all year long have been telling them, you know, Dennis at 40, Orel at 37 when they're cooked. And I talked to him between games, and he said, listen, I just didn't think I could throw the ball over. Very unusual. But you don't see it happen too often, especially in a World Series.
Martinez charting tonight, hoping that his season extends to Saturday. He'd start Game 6.
I mean, I'll tell you what, as you look at Denny, Orel understands after getting 2 runs off Maddox that momentum. You better keep it. Get a quick inning. He's got 2 outs here, and let your guys come back up and take their licks.
Fouled away, and the count 1-2.
I mean, it seems like such a small thing, but how many times in the course of a season your teams get you some runs, you go right back out there, you walk the first guy. This guy knows better. And you can see right now he's got the fans. They are in this game.
Rising as 1 at Jacobs Field. 1-2 the count, 2 out, bases empty. It will be a 1-2-3 inning. Omar. Ended 1.5. Cleveland 2, Atlanta nothing. Trying to stay alive. The Braves trying to win the World Series. 2-0 as we go to the bottom of the 2nd. How unusual was that first inning for Maddox? The last time he gave up 2 walks and a homer in a first inning, 1990. Pitching for the Cubs.
Well, you know, he said he wasn't worried about the physical part about pitching tonight. He said he was worried about controlling his emotions. And this guy is the master of doing that, at least during the regular season and so far here in the postseason.
Tomei to lead off. He was left at the plate when Murray was picked off to end the first inning. Tomei, Ramirez, and Sorrento, the 6, 7, and 8 hitters. One of the reasons Maddox, among other things, is a Gold Glove pitcher. 1 out.
Yeah, 5 times, Al, and most people will tell you he's going to win his 6th. Nobody better in the National League. Now watch the concentration, because when you release the ball, you become a defensive player. Look how balanced he is. I mean, how many times during this World Series have we seen, especially last night, balls going into center field for base hits to lead off an inning? That time and out.
He's balanced, but it doesn't necessarily take good balance to be a good pitcher. Some of the great pitchers of all time had some of the worst follow-throughs. Jim Bunning, Bob Gibson. Sandy Koufax, of course, was almost perfect in every regard. But a lot of people talk about that follow-through. Maddox has a terrific follow-through, but not a lot of power pitchers necessarily have good follow-through.
But they don't also win Gold Gloves. I mean, some have, but they don't field their position quite as well. I mean, I know a guy probably watching this game sitting down in Sailfish Point, Jim Cott. I mean, there was a power pitcher early in his career, but the best fielder I ever saw, because he was prepared to catch the ball the minute he released it.
How can you say that? He only won 16 Gold Gloves.
He won 1 year when he missed most of the year, and he should have. 2-1 the count on Ramirez. Greg Maddux says it's very simple. He said, if I have good mechanics, the ball ought to go where I want to throw it. Look how quiet his front shoulder is. It's very much like a steering wheel, the front shoulder of a pitcher. It takes you where you want to go.
One out, bases empty. Sorrento on deck, bottom of the second. Indians leading 2-0. Full count. Ramirez has had a weird postseason. He's hit only 200. He has 3 home runs, but they have accounted for all of his runs batted in. Bobby Cox managing in the World Series for the 3rd time in 5 years. Mike Hargrove managing in postseason for the 1st time ever. And Ramirez is gone. First strikeout for Maddux. 2 down, and Sorrento comes up.
Well, I think all the Atlanta pitchers, they're very close knit, and what Maddux is trying to do is he makes a perfect pitch 3-2 on the inside part of the plate, is do what Steve Avery did last night, which is make the adjustments. Struggling with his control, still not afraid to make the perfect pitch 3-2.
Strike 1 to Sorrento. How great do you think Maddux must be at darts?
Well, he's a good golfer, good at Nintendo. They said he doesn't like to lose at anything.
Monopoly.
Yeah. Well, he's monopolized the National League as far as all the pitching awards. That's for sure.
1-2.
Mentioned Mike Hargrove in his first World Series as a manager. Here's a guy who played 1,666 games as a player and finally reaches postseason play as a manager.
Spent about half his career with Texas and most of the rest of his career with Cleveland, and a little bit of San Diego thrown in for half a year. And down goes Sorrento. He strikes out looking, and we've played 2 with Cleveland leading Atlanta 2-0. Question is, will there be another game in Atlanta tomorrow, an off day if the series is extended? The 6th game will be played on Saturday and the 7th game on Sunday night. 2-run homer by Albert Bell in the 1st inning. Cleveland on top. We go to the 3rd inning. Charlie O'Brien, the Atlanta catcher, to lead off. Then Belliard, and then the top of the order, Marquise Grissom. Hershiser spent his whole career with the Dodgers. He was signed by the Dodgers in '79, and he was hurt. I mean, he was emotionally hurt when the Dodgers said, well, that's it. And he looked around. He had a couple of choices, and he felt Cleveland would be the best opportunity to play in postseason, and it turned out to be the right choice. The question now is, what will Orel do next year? And he's been kind of mumbling a little bit about maybe even retiring.
Well, I believed in talking to John Hort, the general managers, they have an option on his services if he's going to play. And after going 16-6, 11-2 the last part of the season, the second half, I got to assume they want him back if he's going to pitch again next year.
Hit foul into the dugout. 2-2.
Hershiser had a long talk with the general manager of the Dodgers, Fred Clare, and Fred said, Orel, I know how upset you are. I know how hurt you are about the Dodgers, but let me reassure you that we won't say anything publicly about your feelings toward the Dodgers, and we think it would be smart if you didn't, and neither has, to both of their credits. It's very difficult for an organization when a player, and the pitcher in Hershiser's case, has done so much for that organization and then leaves. But this is a day of free agency, and loyalty on the ball club's part and the players' part does not exist like it used to.
One of the reasons he was expendable was that the Dodgers knew they were going to sign Hideo Nomo and pay him a lot of money up front.
$1 million bonus.
3-2 stroke foul into the seats.
Yeah, fate plays such a major part sometimes in where you end up or how you perform. But Mark Wiley, the pitching coach last year, the advanced scout for the Cleveland Indians, and he Dodgers one of his teams, and they said, who better, a veteran guy, to come over here along with Dennis Martinez and some of their younger pitchers, give them innings. But never ever did Mark think, until Hershiser came back with that velocity, that he was going to be the ace of the staff, and that's how that evolved.
3-2. Hit to the hole, backhanded by Vizquel, throws him out. One down, and Rafael Belliard comes up, the Goodyear Blimp Spirit of Akron, with Mark Cannett at the controls tonight, hovering high above Jacobs Field. It's a pleasant evening. The temperature is in the low 50s. I mentioned at the very top some rain showers, light rain, about 2 hours prior to game time, so neither team took batting practice tonight. Ball 1 to Belliard.
Yeah, I think that's the major concern if you're either Mike Hargrove, Bobby Cox, for a lot of reasons. If you're Hershiser or Maddox, your control pitcher, if it gets wet, if it starts sprinkling, that will affect your control. That front foot is really your control foot's where you land.
2-0. The all-time worst case scenario for Atlanta would be a rain out or a lengthy delay in a tie game, let's say, in a situation where you have Maddox going, and because Bobby Cox opted to pitch Maddox tonight and not last night, you probably won't have him available to start game 7 if necessary. 2-2. But then again, if you think about it, if it were to rain tonight, let's say in the next couple of innings, and you did go to a 7th game, you'd have to play the 5th game tomorrow, and Maddox could conceivably start.
Well, it depends on how deep in the game when it rains. That's the key to that deal.
2-2, got him swinging. Belliard becomes strikeout victim number 3, and that will bring up Grissom.
Al, think if you're an Atlanta Braves fan now, certainly they down in Atlanta, they must have mixed emotions. I mean, you'd prefer after this long dry spell to see them clinch in Atlanta, but you don't want to take the chance of, if they lose this game tonight, to have a rerun of 1992 and put all the pressure on. We talked about the Pirates winning games 5 and 6, and then only a hit by Francisco Cabrera. Not too sure that town can take another game like Game 7 in the 1992 NLCS.
We talked about it during Game 1. The city of Atlanta has never had a team win a professional sports championship while based in Atlanta. The Braves, of course, won the title in Milwaukee. And the Atlanta Hawks went to an NBA Finals as the St. Louis Hawks, though they've never won a league title in Atlanta. The hockey team, the Flames, left after a few seasons, and the Falcons have never been to the Super Bowl, much less won one. 2-1. The totals for Atlanta, if you added up what we would call team seasons, in other words, the Braves have been around for 30 seasons and the Falcons have been around for 30 seasons, there would be 93 team seasons without a championship. 2-2.
Well, you saw right there that 2-1 pitch, what Hershiser's all about since his arm got better, his movement. That ball ran about a foot. That ball starts in the middle of the plate, just it keeps coming in. Grissom thinks it's going to be down the middle, and if he hit that ball, he probably would have broke his back.
Crowd imploring Hershiser for strikeout number 4. And instead it's lifted to right field. It's as good as a strikeout as it's Called in by Ramirez. Out in order. Go the Braves. 2-0 Cleveland. Game 5 of the World Series. Saturday, there's the lineup. Halloween-based lineup here on ABC, the Jeff Foxworthy Show, maybe this time, and Saturday night at the movies, Hocus Pocus, and then Sunday night, assuming there's no Game 7, if there is, of course, you will see it right here. America's Funniest Home Videos, Lois and Clark and the Last Boy Scout, the ABC Sunday night movie, if the World Series doesn't go to a 7th game.
The Last Boy Scouts, it's like the biographies of tonight's starting pitchers.
That was a funny shot. Both benches and the bullpens compelled to empty. So you had about 60 guys milling around in the first inning, and the two pitchers just standing there and singing hymns. Alomar at the plate, 0-1 the count. Alomar, Lofton, and Vizquel. Sandy hit 300 during the regular season. Chop toward the middle. Belliard on the run to throw him out. One away, and that will bring up Kenny Lofton. Beating the Aces. Pitchers beaten by eventual world champions who trailed in the series 3-1. Walter Johnson, the great Walter Johnson, beaten by the Pirates in 25. Warren Spahn by the Yankees in 58. Bob Gibson by the Tigers in 68. A fellow by the name of Palmer by the Pirates in 79 in Game 6. And John Tudor, even though I wouldn't put him with the other 4 on that list, John had a fantastic year in 85.
Yeah, you could that year.
Yes, you could. And he was beaten by the Kansas City Royals in the 7th game.
So I guess that's good company to be in.
You bet.
You got it, brother.
Lofton, strike. 10 years ago, and we were there. We did that World Series where Kansas City was down 3-1. It was a little different because they won the 5th game in St. Louis and then went home and won Games 6 and 7. That's lifted to right field, and Justice makes the catch. The 6th game of that series was the one in which Don Denkinger made that call to first base on George Jordan that led to a Kansas City win. The 7th game wound up 11-0 Kansas City. That was the game in which Joaquin Andujar precipitated a bench clearing incident by throwing at a batter, getting thrown out of the game. Whitey Herzog, managing St. Louis, got thrown out. And in the press conference after the game, the first question to Whitey was, how in the world does a manager get thrown out of the 7th game of the World Series? And Whitey, without missing a beat, said, I'd seen enough. The great Whitey. Leave it to Whitey. Honest to a fault. 1-1.
Key game also in that series was Danny Jackson's shutout in Game 5. Danny Jackson pitched a key shutout against Bobby Cox and the Toronto Blue Jays in the playoffs, and then came back to win Game 5 against the Cardinals at Busch Stadium. And that set the scene in Kansas City.
2-1 the count. 2 out, bases empty, and that's a strike, and the count 2-2. Vizquel walked in the first inning and then rode home on the Bell homer. And ball 3-2.
Yeah, Greg, just a little bit off, and Bobby Cox knows that. Of course, says, where's that pitch? And it's very tough. You know, this is a very emotional game. Tough to see from the bench.
And that stroke towards center field and dropping in for a base hit. So Vizquel, a 2-out single in the 3rd inning, and Baerga coming up, and our crack crew headed by Kurt Gowdy Jr. We talked about that Orta play 10 years ago. 6th game, 9th inning. Kansas City was trailing 1-0. The call by Denkinger at first base, safe.
Todd Worrell, the short reliever for the Cardinals.
And before that inning was done, Kansas City had rallied to win, and on they went the next night to their only world title. There's a connection between that series and this one. John Schuerholz was with Kansas City at that time. A really, I don't want to say unheralded executive. John gets a lot of acclaim, but John has been around a lot of winners, and he is now the general manager of the Atlanta Braves. as Baerga squibs one to the right side. Lemke charges and throws him out to retire the side. End of 3, 2-0 Cleveland. And back we come after this, and McGriff. Runs up to bunt. 1-1. Tomei and on the grass at third. One and two. Jones on deck. 2-2. Here we are 7 years later. Polonia faced Hershiser in the 1988 World Series. Laurel with the Dodgers was the series MVP, and Luis with Oakland.
Hershiser, the MVP of the National League Championship Series and the World Series, starting and winning 2 complete games against Oakland.
And a relief outing beyond belief in the League Championship Series. The key performance there. Hit in the air to right field and deep and gone. Luis Polonia, who hit 1 home run all season long, homers here in the 4th inning to make it 2-1.
Well, you know, all the second guessers will say, how do you speed up a guy's bat by throwing him a hanging curveball? Well, your intentions, if you're Orel Hershiser, is not to do that.
Surely was flat, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure was. 2-2. You want to throw the good curveball. You want to throw it for a strike, middle of the plate, break it down over the outside part of the plate. And this ball really doesn't change plane at all. Hangs right out over the plate. The bat head that normally on a fastball would go to center or left gets out in front. You get your instant run.
A lot of people think every pitch that's hit out of the ballpark's a mistake. Nothing could be further from the truth, but that was.
You know it's a mistake when a guy's been in the majors 9 years and has 16 lifetime home runs and hits one out. Chipper Jones. Ball 2-1.
Yeah, see, when Chipper hits a home run, especially from this side, 23 on the year, left-handed, he hit 20. It's no mistake, because he could take it deep anywhere.
That's grounded to short. Picked by Vizquel. Throws him out. One away, and McGriff the batter. How did Orel respond to throwing that pitch and watching Polonia launch one?
That's a horrible look. You're a pitcher. You didn't have that look too many times.
I had it. I tell you, it's a horrible feeling. The look's worse than the feeling.
It's almost the ball going out is in direct proportion to how fast a pitcher snaps his head back to look at it.
Followed by an instant mutter.
Well, you know, that's if you're in the movie industry or the TV industry, what you do when the ball's halfway to the plate, you go, take 2, timeout. You know, I mean, you yell or you scream, but you can't do it.
You want your catcher to come up and interfere, right?
Exactly. Because you know it's going to be a home run swing, and Polonia delivered.
0-1 on McGriff. 1 out, base is empty. But he takes strike 2. Strike 3. Frank Pulley started to go back as if it was the 3rd out. He made the call. And Frank, you were caught. You got caught, Frank.
And look at that smile under the mask.
Frank trying to get us to go to a commercial. 2 out, Frank.
Well, I think, you know, he's still shocked that Polonia hit that home run, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Normal, every time Polonia hits a fly ball to right, it is an out.
Yeah, Pulley makes the call, strike 3, and that's it, folks. I'm going to go back for a glass of water. Justice takes a strike.
Well, see, if you're consistent on the corners like Hershiser and Maddox have been and are, you're going to get those pitches. That pitch was outside to McGriff. Hershiser with the break, but the reason you get it, you're always there.
Comebacker. Oh, throws him out, but a leadoff homer by Colonia halves the lead at the end of 3.5. In the bottom of the fourth. This was last night off Steve Avery. This was tonight off Maddox. So the man who hit 50 during the regular season and stroked 31 over the last 2 months of the year, most ever hit by a batter over a 2-month period, leads off.
Well, we saw his great strength, those 2 home runs, and they said one of Greg Maddox's great strength is adjusting when a hitter adjusts. So he moves up on the plate, talking about Albert Bell. Tom Glavine said, I can't do it. I'm too focused on just trying to get my curveball and changeup and fastball over. But Maddox looks about stance, holding the hands. And the first time, Bell up on the plate, and he is again much closer than he was last Saturday.
Nice play by Pulley. 1-1.
Well, I'll tell you what, nobody's ever going to accuse Frank Pulley of not really being energized and being into this game. Very nice. Right off the mask.
Not that Bell's back foot is out of the box, but I think it's in Canton. Three and one. Maddox walked 2 in the first inning. Crowd trying to coax a walk or better. Instead, 3 and 2.
Well, this is obviously not the way he wants to pitch. He wants to be ahead 0-2, 1-2, work the corners. But I'll tell you what, he's not the type of guy that ever gives in, not on purpose. Even 3-2 here leading off an inning, I don't think he's going to do that.
Struck him out. 3 strikeouts for Greg Maddox, and that will bring up Eddie Murray. Tonight's World Series Game 5 is being brought to you by Chevrolet. The cars and trucks 36 million people depend on every day. Genuine Chevrolet. Network MCI. How to get modern communications technology working for your business. And the employee owners of Avis. We're into the future, into it now, trying harder than ever. So here's Murray. After Maddox came up and in, precipitating a bench clearing incident, non-fracas, Eddie drew the walk and was eventually picked off by O'Brien at first base. One and one.
Normally an experienced hitter, if he's knocked down early in the count, he'll make a scene as Murray did, and what that does in effect is push the ball out over the plate. And that's what Murray tried to do, intimidate Maddox.
Look at that, lowest batting average in World Series play among players, active players with at least 50 at-bats. Ozzie Smith, the lowest, 173. Eddie would be next at 183, playing in his 3rd World Series. A lot of Smiths from the 1985 series when Ozzie was 2 for 23. As Kansas City came from behind to win that series.
Yeah, hard to believe. I mean, Eddie with the got his 3,000th hit this year, one of 20 players to do that.
2 and 2.
479 regular season home runs. But in the Fall Classic, he has struggled.
is as good as it gets.
I got even more respect for Greg Maddux because, first of all, he shows me why he wins a Gold Glove, but number two, he gets out of the way and then catches it. Very nice.
I'll tell you, a certain amount of solace for Eddie Murray also after being knocked down. Now he knocks Maddux down. Not too many hitters have that opportunity. What a play.
But again, look at the balance. That's the only way that you can defend yourself, and that's really what he's doing. I mean, it's almost like that ball found his glove.
That's exactly right. The ball caught him, not the other way around.
I mean, that ball goes back at Maddux a lot faster than the pitch to Murray.
Yes.
0-1 on Thome.
But those are the little things that allow you to win games.
Well, every time you see a line drive back to the mound like that, Herb scoring, you think about the Gil McDougall incident. Herb would have been one of the all-time greats, probably, were it not for that injury that truncated his career. Popped up. Chipper Jones will make the play, and that's that in the 4th inning. So to the 5th we go in Game 5. 2-1 Indians. Leslie Visser, what's happening down there?
Alan, with someone who knows a little bit about Orel Hershiser's competitiveness, his younger brother Gordy. Gordy, you pitched in the Dodger organization for 4 years. Your brother said he made an adjustment coming into this game from Game 1. What was that?
Well, essentially in Game 1, what he was doing and what he gets into the pattern of is he leans his back, he tilts towards the first base side, and he leads it with his jaw. And what that does is when he goes towards the plate, it drops his arm. And it drops his arm angle. So instead of his ball biting on his sinker, it essentially slides away over to the middle part of the plate. So he needs to straighten up a little bit and just work in a straight line with Sandy Alomar so he gets a good bite, not only on the sinker, but on the curveball.
Thanks, Gordy. Al, he's a broadcaster in Portland, Maine. He'll probably have our job.
Tell me about it. I was going to say, that's an audition tape right there. Palmer, you're out of here.
I got to start using the word essentially. Essentially, I was taught that your chin leads you where you're going. Try to keep the chin down along with the front shoulder, and then you're going to have a pretty good direction.
Except if you're a boxer.
Yeah, that was, yeah. I think that's what Gordy was alluding to.
Here's Klesko taking outside. Klesko, Lemke, and O'Brien. 5th inning, 2-1 Indians. Bell, a 2-run homer in the 1st. Polonia, a bases empty homer in the 4th. 2-0 on Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan's saying, you know, he'd rather be a first baseman. He's been playing left field, but in 2 games as a DH, he's got 2 home runs. It's quite a pace.
Only way he'll be a first baseman for the Braves is if they don't sign Fred McGriff.
And that's line base hit over Baerga's glove and out into right field. Klesko with a leadoff single, and Mark Lemke comes to the plate.
Well, Ryan hit .344 against right-handed pitching this year, and you don't want to go 2-0. And if you do, you've got to make a good pitch. This is not a good one. Belt high, middle of the plate. And if you're Orel Hershiser, you're actually lucky because you expect a good swing, and a lot of Klesko's swings end up in home runs with 23 this year.
Nobody out. Klesko at first base. There's a saying in baseball in the 7th game of a World Series when you ask who's in the bullpen, and the manager will say Charlie Holstaff, meaning everybody. Well, for the next 3 games, if it goes that long, that's who's in the bullpen for the Cleveland Indians.
With the possible exception of Dennis Martinez, who, if they win tonight, will be the starter on Saturday.
Mike Hargrove saying that even if he needed to bring Charles Nagy in tonight to get a couple of batters, as a pitch out here doesn't yield anything, he would.
And I guess Kenny Hill, who pitched last night for the Indians. I mean, even for Atlanta, John Smoltz is in the bullpen tonight.
Smoltz would be a starter in Game 7 if we get that far. 2-1. World Series leaders among active players. We saw the low rung before. Molitor, Henderson, and there's Lemke. So you've got Lemke on this list, and Ozzie Smith and Eddie Murray on the other list. Strange. Little chopper back to Hershiser, goes to second. No, he's off the bag. Engelstadt, the umpire at second. They will very often give you the in the neighborhood play there, but that was out of the neighborhood. And the Braves have runners at first and second.
That was a couple of blocks away. A rare mistake by a fine fielder. Hershiser with plenty of time. I think he tried to rush it, trying to get two. And on a play like that, you have to make sure you get the lead runner. The ball's not hit fast enough for you to get to, and that ball clearly pulling Vizquel off the bag.
Yeah, you see him drop his arm a little bit, and when he drops his arm, Timmy, the ball tails. Arm up.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, that's right. You're right. I mean, you have to make that play, and we see the difference. Maddox already making some great fielding plays, and as we take a look, Klesko with a thumb injury earlier in the year.
Yeah, the interesting thing is Klesko slides by the bag. If Vizquel had the wherewithal to come back and make the tag, looked like he jammed his left thumb into the bag, and he slides by it by about 2 feet. Vizquel's complaining about the call, trying to get the call. Had he immediately gone back to Klesko, he could have tagged him past the bag. But obviously, at that time, he didn't realize that he was past the bag, as Jeff Porter, the assistant trainer, is out looking at the left thumb of Ryan Klesko. That's why you see a that's a torn britches right there. That's why you see a lot of guys wear gloves or carry gloves in both hands, so they don't open the hands on contact with a fielder or a base. A lot of guys in the olden days used to put 2 hands of dirt to make sure that didn't happen.
Now here's O'Brien in a situation where you might think bunt, but keep in mind Belliard's on deck, the number 9 hitter, is that stroke foul, so that would mitigate against a bunt. Here's Raphael, who does not have a hit in the World Series.
Now going back to that thumb injury, Klesko spent about 16 days on the DL in May with an injury to that left thumb.
Klesko at second. Lemke, who reached on the error at first. And now he's up there to bunt with a strike, and it's a good bunt fielded by Sereno to Baerga covering for the out. So a 3-4 sacrifice. Runners now at second and third.
And a pinch hitter for Belliard.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting case here where with Jeff Blauser hurt and not even on the roster, Belliard was the man. Now they're forced, as Dwight Smith comes up, to go with Mike Mordecai or Ed Giovanola, who was in the minors and was activated when Blauser went down.
I'll tell you, I mean, I think it's a good play. I think Hargrove's going to come out and talk about maybe who Orel wants to pitch to. You have to understand, Orel Hershiser had the best record as far as throwing double plays. The average is every time you have an opportunity, you get 1 out of 10. He's 1 out of 4.3.
Jim Poole begins to throw now in the Cleveland pen.
I don't think, I mean, I might be wrong about this, Jim, but I don't think you walk Dwight Smith in this situation. Not with a guy like Marquise Grissom, who's hit in every postseason game so far. I mean, it does set up a double play, but he runs so well, you'd have to hit the ball hard to get the double play, and you have a guy fresh off the bench. I pitched to Dwight Smith here. I don't even think about pitching around him.
Oh, I'm not going to suggest that he pitches around him, but again, this is one of these situations.
They're going to walk him. You were right.
Well, it's strange, but again, this is saying, listen, I can get out of this inning with 1 pitch, and maybe some respect for Dwight Smith, who's a heck of a pinch hitter.
If nothing else, it's taking the bat out of Smith's hand for the rest of the game, and the Braves will clearly be weakened on the left side of the infield. Belliard a much better shortstop than either Mordecai or Giovanola.
Grissom, a very fast runner, tough to double. Dwight Smith, the fast runner. I mean, if Grissom gets a hit here, you could see a first and third and a Brave lead. This is a very brazen move, in my judgment, by Mike Hargrove. And I would imagine, Jim, you're right, but by going out to Hershiser, you're asking him the option, and I would think Hershiser said, let's walk him and take our chances with Grissom.
And again, what you're doing, if you're Mike Hargrove, you're trusting Orel Hershiser to do what he's done all year long. We'll just have to wait and see if that transpires.
Marquis 6 for 19 lifetime infield double play depth. And It's a little chopper to the left of the mound, and Hershiser won't have any play as it turns out. The only play he would have had, the way that ball was hit, would have been a 1-2 force at home. And now the game is tied and the bases remain loaded. Grissom with an infield single to tie it.
Well, you know, you talk about fate, and this is, I mean, it's a good pitch. Very, very tough play. And at 37, I don't think Hershiser's going to make it very often. Greg Maddux, maybe at 29, but at 37, you're about 65 pitches into the game. Cold, cool night. Very, very tough play.
Well, if he doesn't make it, nobody makes it. He's got to try to barehand the ball.
He played it perfectly.
Yep.
I mean, in the sense, that's the only way he could have made the play.
Now a pitch out as they thought Polonia would be squeezing, and he's not.
Well, I'll tell you, that's some amazing strategy. The guy hits a home run the time before, and now they're looking for the squeeze.
I think possibly Mike Hargrove might have been thinking about the criticism that he was under when he didn't pitch out in game 1 in the 7th. But this is a totally different situation. You got Polonia, not Belliard.
Or they thought maybe they'd stolen a sign. I don't know. 1-1 to count. Yeah.
I think it probably stems from the criticism he got not pitching out in game 1. Arguable point, I know, but
if you are going to squeeze, that's the time to do it after a pitch out. Infield double play depth, and the 1-1 pitch is just off the plate. Ball 2. 2-1. Lemke at third. Smith at second. Grissom at first. Inning started with a base hit by Klesko, then the error by Hershiser. A sacrifice, an intentional walk, and the script single by Grissom. 2-2 in the 5th. Grounded down to short. Vizquel by Erga 1. Back to first. Dug out by Sorrento. But the Braves get even. Halfway through this one. 2-2. The ballpark sparkling tonight. Game 5 of the World Series. 2-2 as we go to the bottom of the 5th.
Ryan Klesko talking to Dave Pursley appears to be all right. But you know, a ground ball double play is a strange animal because you want the hitter to hit it hard enough to where you can double him, especially if he runs well like Polonia does. An easy 6-4-3 double play. But that ball was scalded to shortstop.
Mike Mordecai is the new shortstop. Belliard pinch hit 4. And so Mordecai at short, who played sparingly this year. And Manny Ramirez leads off in the bottom of the 5th inning.
And so the Braves, they've improved their offense and hurt their defense.
Bottom of the order, Ramirez, Sorrento, and Alomar. One and one.
Good old Bobby.
Bobby and Frank Pulley, I think, have had this conversation before.
I'll tell you, I mean, Frank Pulley is calling the balls the way they should be. They're just a little bit outside. And of course, you know, good umpires, they just look over. I mean, give you the wave off.
Two-hopper down to Mordecai, who sees immediate action and guns him down.
Well, that's what you want when you come in for defense. You want the ball to be hit to you immediately. You don't want to wait like an inning and a third and think about it. It's like a field goal kicker. You don't like that timeout on the other side.
The other night he had one hit to him and he threw it in the dirt. Right. He was bailed out.
Right.
Now Sorrento, who struck out in the 2nd inning. Indians through 4 games in the World Series. Take another look at that. And we threw an extra E in there for an eerie coincidence. in the 54 World Series. They had 26 hits and 137 at-bats going down to the Giants in 4. Exactly the same figures prevailed through the first 4 games in this series. Though they did win 1, and we talked about it earlier, they hit 291 did the Indians during the regular season, and their average in the World Series coming into tonight's game 190. Rolled foul, 2-2.
Manager Mike Hargrove, he said, you know, to me it's quite simple. We have not faced pitching as good as the Braves. Guys that change speeds, pitch to both sides of the plate. And the only guy they had some success with, and in fairness to John Smoltz, who hadn't pitched in 13 days, was Smoltz, a power pitcher.
He lasted 2 1/3 innings on Tuesday night.
2-2 to Serrano, is hit in the air to right field and deep. Justice backs up and makes the catch on the warning track.
Hit it off the end of the bat. Didn't quite get it. That's what Maddox can do. He is talk about all the mastery and everything. He's a wizard at keeping the ball off the fat part of the bat. Watch this ball hit right down on the end. Little changeup.
Well, that's what he says. What is pitching? It's the art of messing up hitters' timing and then trying to outguess them. Boy, has he been good at that this year.
Plays that guessing game pretty well, doesn't he?
Alomar hits one in the gap toward left center field, and that one is off the top of the wall. Polonia chases it down, and Alomar has a 2-out double.
Well, Tim, he doesn't make too many mistakes. But in the division series, he made 2 of them, and they're on this pitch. A high slider, a hanging slider.
Looked like it backed up into the strike zone.
One to Castilla, one to Bichette. And that ball misses from going out by about 2 feet, maybe even less than that. I mean, this ball is nailed. Actually, you can see it just coming off the wall. And Luis Polonia there to hold Alomar to a double. That wall out left field, 19 feet high.
And it's not only an asymmetrical park, but the wall 19 feet in left, but if he hits it to center or right, it's 8 feet. Lofton. It's a little scribber up the line that bounces foul. 0-1. Davey Nelson wants to make sure it stays foul. Davey Nelson, longtime American League infielder. Kick is no good. I was talking to Davey's parents, Ozzie and Harry. No, I guess not. That's the other Davey. I'm sorry about that.
Well, what you're going to see right here, you're going to see the Atlanta infielders playing a little deeper with 2 out and a man on second base. Even if they can't make a play at first, they'll be deep enough to knock a ball down. Infielders are trained to do that with 2 out and a man on second.
0-1 on Lofton. And that's line to right field and deep, and Justice backs up and he makes the catch. So the Indians with good wood in the 5th inning, but to no avail. Strand Alomar at second. To the 6th we go. The game tied 2-2 on a Saturday on ABC Sports at 1:30 Eastern time and 4 o'clock Pacific time. The Tour Championship. Billy Mayfair heading the field after 1 round, and you'll see the action Saturday right here on ABC.
It's a little like your follow-through, Al.
Yes, right. Just a little. College football on Saturday as well. Nebraska, Colorado, Florida, Georgia. USC against Washington, and Minnesota takes on Michigan. Regional action. Check your local listings.
You can't find anybody in this booth with that follow-through but you.
That's right.
Well, I tell you, if that ball would just listen to what you tell it before you hit it, Al.
Yep,
right. Would be much easier, wouldn't it?
That's what some of these players and hitters are thinking about right now.
Well, you
Just
know,
listen
Davis.
to me.
You know, Davis Justice is going to talk to himself. Yep. To the bat, to the ball.
Yep.
He'll come up 3rd in the inning, which begins with Jones at the plate. Jones, McGriff, and Justice. And Hershiser in there for a strike, 0-1. Orel threw 5, 4 hits and 2 runs, 1 earned, a walk and 4 strikeouts. That's hit foul. Funny thing about the way it's scored in baseball, the run against Hershiser in the 5th inning would be unearned, despite the fact it was created because of his error. 0-2 to Jones. Got him.
Well, there you go. What Greg Maddux does so well, something you talked about earlier, Tim.
Right.
Hershiser, page right out of the book, both sides of the plate. That tailing fastball that Chipper Jones thinks is going to be inside, and right on the corner. At least Frank Pulley thought it was.
That pitch most effective right at the belt. You see the left-handed hitters lift the hands. Once they lift the hands and that ball tails back over the plate, they're dead.
Freddie McGriff has struck out twice tonight. Orel has struck out 5. 1-0. McGriff during the regular year hit .280 with 27 home runs. You forget the regular season's been over 3 weeks. It is a long postseason, but it's been a very exciting one. Chopper. Hershiser hurries his throw. Nails him. 2 down, and that will bring up David Justice. Again, the Goodyear blimp. Spirit of Akron providing the scenic, spectacular shots of downtown Cleveland. This ballpark, part of the whole renaissance, and we've talked about it. It's been written about a lot around the country. The Indians for years, the futility, the frustration, never even really coming close to winning for so long. Playing in the old ballpark, and then they built this park, and it is just a jewel. One to 0 on Justice.
Well, I'll tell you what, Orel Hershiser has liked to pitch here over the course of this year. Went 10-2 here. A little over 2.5 runs a game. That's an amazing ERA in this ballpark.
2-0.
And Vizquel going to go to the right side of the infield because 2-0, they expect Justice to become a pull hitter. Even though they play him a couple of steps to left in the outfield.
And he goes the other way and hits it to left field and deep, and Bell backs up and makes the catch in the middle of the track.
Thing is, they were happy that he went the other way.
Did him a favor. 2-2, middle of the 6th. Things are going to get very interesting now. 2-2 as we go to the bottom of the 6th inning. And now the bullpens are going to come into play. And Wohlers didn't have it last night after working 2 2/3 innings 2 nights ago. Mesa worked 3 innings 2 nights ago. It's going to be a very interesting set of circumstances that develop.
Well, it's not as worrisome for Bobby Cox as it is for Mike Hargrove. You may even see a guy like Mesa come in the 8th inning of a tie ball game.
Even though he hasn't done that very much, but I think Bobby Cox said, I'd love to have Maddux go 9 innings and not worry about Wohlers. But I'll tell you what, Maddux that we're seeing tonight is not the Greg Maddux that we saw Saturday night in Atlanta. Not pitching badly, but not on top of his game. A lot more fly balls, and lately a few line drives.
Actually, Maddux has only allowed 2 hits since the 1st inning. The 2-run homer by Bell, the walk to Murray. Only 2 base runners since then.
Tony Pena, I don't know if he was hit by a ball or went into the dugout or what. He's got that is the quintessential fat lip. Bottom of the 6th inning, Vizquel leading things off, strike 1.
He wants to be like Chipper Jones. Chipper Jones on Friday night in the workout in Atlanta took one off the wall.
Yep. Two of a kind. Strike. 0-2. Vizquel, Baerga, and Bell. Game tied 2-2. Bottom of the 6th inning. Rolls slowly toward a charging Mike Mordecai, who throws him out. One shortstop takes care of the other, and Carlos Baerga, who is twice grounded to second base, comes up. We understand our producer Kurt Gowdy Jr. telling us that Tony was warming up Hershiser between innings, and that's how he got the fat lip.
Obviously without a mask.
Yeah, when you don't have your mask on, what you want to do is olay those balls in the dirt. It's going to hit you. It's going to hit you in the rear end.
Strike. 0-1 on Baerga. Martinez telling Tony, you got to wear a mask.
Yeah, because if the Indians win tonight, Pena will be catching Martinez on Saturday night, and he wants him healthy.
And they might need Tony as a pinch hitter tonight.
Sure.
As well. That stroke down the left field line. Fair ball bouncing into the corner. Polonia plays the carom perfectly. Baerga on his way to second, diving in with a double.
You talk about a guy who made an adjustment. Carlos Baerga grounded out to second his first 2 times up. And there was no way he was going to try to pull the Maddox fastball away again. He hits it right down the left field line for a double. He had 28 during the season. An interesting situation right here.
Good play by Polonia, who is not... Well, he is actually familiar with his ballpark, having played there with the Yankees, but with that tarp there as Cox goes to the mound and first base open here, they'll discuss strategy. But Luis did all he could to hold it to a single.
I think Maddox said he wants to pitch to him, but Bobby Cox giving Greg the same option that Mike Hargrove gave Oral Hershiser when Dwight Smith was the pinch hitter. But now you have righty to righty.
Right, and you've got 2 left-handed batters to follow.
Well, nobody in the American League hit right-handed pitching better than Eddie Murray, who's on deck. He had 340.
And they're going to walk him and take their chances with Murray. So they take the bat out of Bell's hands. And Albert draws his 12th postseason walk. And so here we go again after that first inning confrontation between Murray and Maddox. This is what it comes down to, with 2 on and 1 out in the 6th, and the din. Eddie.
I think what Maddox is probably thinking, that even if you make a good pitch to Bell on the outside corner, that Albert is strong enough to hit the ball out the other way. He has 2 opposite field home runs. So by pitching around him, you may be pitching into his strength.
Here it was in the first inning. Bell had homered. He was the prior batter. Maddox comes up and in. And then the next time up, Maddox made the play of plays.
I mean, Maddox had such a great year. The whole league hit 198. Lefties only 212. So here's a guy that was great against righties and lefties, against the best hitter in the American League against right-handed pitching.
Ball 1 to Murray.
You mentioned that 11 for 62 lifetime in the World Series. You can exercise a lot of demons with a big blow here.
On top of that game-winning blow 2 nights ago. hit sharply to deep right, but Justice will make the play. Tagging at second base is Baerga and advances to third. So he hit it on the money, but right in the neighborhood of Dave Justice for out number 2. And the Indians have runners at first and third.
It's about the same place on the bat, however, that Sorrento hit the ball to right field. Maddox with that uncanny ability to keep it on the end of the bat instead of the fat part of the bat.
Well, we talked last night about, in fact, his first game, location. Look where the ball is. It's 2-0. You don't give in. You get the ball away, Timmy. And instead of hitting it on the fat part, a little bit out on the end.
Yep.
And again, Justice playing around because he knew Maddox or expected Maddox to make a good pitch, and he did.
Good pitching and good scouting right there, too.
Well, it sure is.
Baerga, the go-ahead run at third. Bell at first. Thome has grounded out and popped out. He is 2 for 14 in the World Series.
Now, Thome is another guy that said, I got to take the outside part of the plate away.
And Maddox comes in on him, 0-1.
But see, this is what he said. I mean, this is really what it's all about. A young hitter, he says, listen, I'm going to look away. I'm going to take the pitch inside. And then in a clutch situation, and this is what good pitchers thrive on, they know hitters are going to expand the strike zone. He throws the first pitch up and in. Thome said he's not going to swing at it, and he does. He's behind in the count.
Fisted foul straight back, 0-2.
2 of them inside. 2 inside fastballs to an inside fastball hitter. And now Maddox can do anything he wants with Jim. He can go away. He can take something off. So you really have to watch Albert Bell. I mean, Mike Hargrove may try to steal a run here.
And McGriff's going to play off the bag at first base.
Right.
They'll give Bell second base uncontested if he wants to go. And the pitch is popped up in foul ground and back in the seats.
Well, I think it's too early for that, Al. I mean, here we are only in the 6th inning. If you give Albert Bell second base, Thome gets a hit. You're 2 runs behind if you're Bobby Cox. I think they realize that Albert Bell is not a fast runner, and they can afford to play McGriff behind him. I think if he runs, I think Charlie O'Brien will try to look Baerga back and throw through.
Yeah, neither of these base runners with good speed.
No.
Especially with Baerga with the bad ankle.
Well, they're almost daring Bell to run because Belliard or Mordecai at shortstop and Lemke are well away from the bag.
Of course, there are 2 outs and 2 strikes. But when you look at the middle infielders, you really get the feeling that they are giving Albert second base.
Yep. They're normally positioned.
See if Jeff Newman, the third base coach for the Indians, picks that up. And if he does, they may send Bell here.
If it's a no-risk situation for the base runner, the good news for you is that it takes away a force at second base.
Yeah, if they're going to give it to you, take it.
He won't take it, and the pitch is up high. 1-2.